Scrolling, scrolling, scrolling on the river.
Yeah, I could check on my end real quick. I'm signed in on my main YouTube account. Okay, yep, it's live.
Okay, but is uh, y- is YouTube actually picking up any audio? That's the real question.
Let me check. Okay, I have the thing. Okay, yep, it's picking up audio.
Okay, great. Then I don't need to go through with my plan to traumatize the audience. Okay, yep, I got you
You're
confirmed
not
as
gonna do
well.
that. You're not gonna do
Oh, I
that.
don't need to if the audio is working. My whole the whole point of that little prank of mine was just to have something for us to do while we wait for YouTube to pick up the audio.
Do it again. Do it anyways. Do it anyways. Do it anyways.
Okay. Um, Live audio working. Yeah, I got. Yep. Yeah, I got you. All right. 1 second. I need to get into character. Hey guys, did you know that in terms of male human and female Pokemon breeding, Vaporeon is the most compatible Pokemon for humans? Not only are they in the Feline group, which is mostly comprised of mammals, Vaporeon are an average of 3 feet 3 inches tall and 63.9 pounds. This means they're large enough to be able to handle human decks. And with their impressive base stats for HP and access to acid armor, you can be rough with one. Due to their mostly water-based biology, there's no doubt in my mind that an aroused Vaporeon would be incredibly wet.
Ugh.
So wet.
Well, in the words of Justin RPG, no, Reshiram is my wife. Vaporeon is not. Moltres, take a
Fine.
shit on my face.
I'm halfway done. I'm halfway through this. Him. Where was I? Oh yeah. That you could easily have sex with one for hours without getting sick. They can also learn the moves Attack, Baby Doll Eyes, Cupcake, Charm, and Tail Whip, along with not having further high nipples, so it'd be incredibly easy for one to get you in the mood. With their abilities Water Absorb and Hydration, they can easily recover from fatigue with enough water. No other Pokemon comes close to this level of compatibility. Also, fun fact, if you pull out enough, you can even make your Vaporeon turn white. Holy crap, I thought I could get through that in a single take, and nope. Alright, now that I've gotten that over with, let's get down to business. For real, no more bullshitting. Oh boy. Uh, oh gosh, where to actually begin? Oh, yeah, so welcome everybody to, or rather, welcome back to the King's Council podcast if you're familiar with what we do already, and if not, then I guess welcome for the first time. And for the first time in a while, we actually have on a formerly recurring guest, Okairo. It's been a while. How have you been?
Fine. I've opened a new private security business.
Oh, cool. Want to tell us and the audience a little bit about that?
It's called Ikarian Nights, and at the moment, it's just me at the moment while I'm looking for clients and such.
Oh, cool. I'm actually somewhat familiar with your business. I believe it's unarmed personal security, correct?
Yes.
That's pretty neat. So if anyone has any need for that, definitely check out the Carrier Knights. I assume you have a website for this in addition to your X Twitter page.
Yeah, well, if I don't have it on the X page, I'll put it up soon,
Okay.
but it should be there.
All right. So, as we've covered before we went live, we have a lot to talk about today, don't we?
I've got my
Yes.
aspirin.
Yeah, you might just need it. Oh gosh, all this scrolling. So I have to find my itinerary here in our chat. Okay, here it is. So, given the title of today's live stream, we should probably start this off by going over what if all his post that he made about 5 days ago at the time of recording. Um, I have it pulled up here, and I'm willing to read it unless either of you want to.
I'd have to
I
go looking for it, so I guess you're reading it.
Right, and I promise I won't use my
Nerd boy.
congested and yes, like my nerd voice this time. I Yeah, I swear I'll only have subjected you guys to that once. So, his post, it's actually a response, or rather, his what would you call it? Reposting. Anyhow, it's a following response to a post he made the same day, and I'm only going to read that first line of that. It goes, "Does anyone else feel the Overton window getting magnetically pulled towards us?" Actually, I'll read the next sentence too. "I don't mean that in the cringe enabling Nazis way, but in a genuine attempt to grapple with where we're at and what we've lost as a culture." And then, yeah, the rest of that is not really important to what he says in this next post, which is one of two that is the basis for today's discussion, which goes as follows. "Why do you people keep simping for the Nazis? Since you're too illiterate to actually understand any rightist thought or what the Nazis actually believed. The Nazis were modernist. They believed in the total state government intervention in the economy, atheism, slave states, and no separation of private and public life. They are as degenerate and corrupted by modernity as the left or the Marxists are, excuse me. Nazism doesn't even make sense anymore. It only made sense in a highly particular country a century ago. America has no need to genocide the Slavs for Lebensraum. We don't have a huge state-planned economy from World War I that we can just retool as our new totalitarian society. We did not just lose World War I and need a myth to justify the horror. Supporting Nazism doesn't even make sense in American context. None of their positions even work here. You guys just want to look edgy. You pick the Nazis because you fear genuine conservatism. You fear leaving the 20th century Overton window. However, that's where all the cool stuff is. Your ancestors were way cooler than the Nazis were. The Vikings, Crusaders, Aryans, colonists, British Empire, Celts, Napoleonic Wars, and cowboys were all far more primal and interesting than the Nazis, while still not being sellouts to modernity. Why don't you model them instead? Nazis are totally opposed to American and Anglo-Saxon values, so anyone who supports them is a traitor. Close quote. You got that aspirin on hand, Cairo?
Yes, I do.
Alrighty. So, who wants to respond to this first?
It's like I get what he's saying, and there is actually some truth to it. There are, at least in my eyes, I think there are groups of people who are cooler than the Newtsies for sure. Whether it is people in the ancient world or even or even people before the the 1940s. Like I'd go with the Tsarist Russia for sure. Um, but at the same time, it's like there's the reason why people are like, again, it's mainly young people who are using like not like Newtzy symbolism or whatnot, even though they don't really care what it actually entails or whatnot. They're using it more as a form of like rebellion, if anything.
Right.
And they're doing, and they feel dissatisfied at the bullshit that is modernity, and they're just trying to latch on to something that doesn't feel like modernity. And for many people, the Newtsies kind of fit that to them to a T, you could say.
All right. Okara, anything you want to add to that?
I mean, a lot of what he said I agree with, though I kind of look at everything that what if all this said is he says a lot, and some of it I agree with. I do have to agree. It's like, why do people simp for the Nazis? But at the same time, a lot of it is nonsense. That's the best way to put it in my kind of thinking. Because, I mean, if you look back, were our ancestors cooler than them? Well, as Scurvy says, the Newtsies? Yes. But at the same time, a lot of people look at the Nazis as clean, you know, I guess kind of like saving their country, considering what it used to be before they made it to what it is. And they're kind of drawing parallels to what we have now. They're seeing Weimar Germany and they're going, well, we only have one instance in history that we know of where they fixed this. So it's kind of 2 plus 2 equals 4 with some people. And then with how the democratic world is, no one's going to look at Vikings, Crusaders, British Empire, or anything before that and go, let's use that system because they're all afraid of letting one person have power.
Which is absolutely bizarre because, Adolf Hitler is the face of National Socialism. And it's usually his image that people parade around to promote it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually had the answer for this a good few months ago. Yeah, I believe I made this comment back in July. And my response to this is, why are fascism and monarchism on the rise? Because let's be honest, as small as we are, us monarchists, as a community, we are gaining some growth, even if it's not as quick as the fascists. But anyway, why are fascism and monarchism on the rise? Because democracy and the republics have failed. The youth
Yep.
yearn for actual solutions. Fascism appeals to those seeking a quick, short term solution. Monarchism appeals to those seeking a true, long term solution. Choose the latter. And I still stand by everything I just said there. 100%.
Yeah, pretty much. People look at democracy, look at the bickering, and go, yeah, they say all these words, but nothing changes. We might as, even if it ain't going to be perfect, we might as well have someone who will do something.
Somebody's gotta do something, and that someone is me. But we're never gonna get that, in at least in the West, for a while. I think people are still very much content with the status quo. I mean, there's the phrase "nothing ever happens." I mean, that that exists for a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we don't we have like a good example of that? What? It's what, 3, 4 days old by now?
I think
Um,
so.
you'll have to tell me what you mean. Or is it, or does this have to do with the next item on our itinerary?
If it's the certain redacted files,
Oh, yeah, no, that. Yeah, that's actually a really good example. If you want to go ahead and fill us in on what's been happening with that.
well, the Trump administration basically went, sure, we'll release the files. And they did. But everyone ignored the glaring loophole of, well, we can release the files, doesn't mean we have to show what's on the files. So they just redacted everything. And technically, they still did what they said.
They released the files. They did do that. Oh, so we released the Epstein files. Yay! We something finally happened. No, no, it didn't. That's not
Yeah.
what people meant by release the Epstein files.
I mean, it's a technical loophole. They basically released it, but at the same time, they didn't because they redacted 98% of it.
This
How
is also.
kosher? How kosher?
Yeah, this is also why republics, as much as they may sound nice, are just garbage because they require the practitioners and upholders of a republic's laws to not use technicality to suit their own self interest at the expense of the people they're supposed to lead and serve. But of course, we have the American Empire. We don't call ourselves that, but we are one, let's be honest.
Yeah.
That's the United States of America is a very, very grim and clear example of just that.
And let's expand on this. And if we were in a kingdom or an empire, and the king or emperor said, "Okay, I'm going to release these files out to you commoners to look at and get informed," if he did this, there'd be riots all over the place. There wouldn't just be complaining, there'd be a lot of very, very angry peasants.
Sure, but that can also be said, uh, not really, but there's some, I think, who would argue that that is still, how is that any less feasible in a republic or democracy where you get enough people are angry enough where they just rise up because they're angry with their leaders?
Because we can look at it right now. What's everyone doing? They're complaining on social media. Are they going to go
Right,
out and start a fuss?
which I think that's more of an indictment of how the how
Internet?
the world order at large has managed to keep the masses passive. Since I'd argue, um, and it's something that Scrump, Evelyn, and Lamented and Academic Agent, all of them, when they talk about elite theory, it's one of the things that they get right, that the people themselves don't lead. They can't take charge. That's what elites do. That's what leaders are for. They're the ones who take charge. So when peasants rise up, are they being led by other peasants, or are they being led by a counter elite? Or moreover, in instances where a leader has started as a pleb, when they rise to such prominence to where they are leading masses, are they still plebs?
That's a good point, and I do remember you guys talking about this in the last King's Council. I would say that very, very rarely can a commoner plebeian become an elite. It
And
takes either.
even when they do, they're not a plebeian anymore, are they?
No, the best way to term it would be minor elite, and only minor because the the bigger elites can always crush him. He's still growing into what he is.
Yeah, yeah, I guess those are what you would call the major elites then, the ones who already have that power.
But to
And
go,
see that and personally that's where I use the term elites and counter elites because an elite is someone who already is in charge to some degree and has some authority in their respective field or position. A counter elite is just someone who gains that prominence in opposition to them. That's how I understand it.
pretty much, and to add on to the whole complacent thing, which you guys talked on the last council and just a bit now, a lot of this complacency is taught. I imagine all three of us have heard it in schools where violence is never the answer. You can always talk out your problems, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that on top of other things, such as punishing kids who stand up to bullies and not the bullies for pretty much
Yeah.
everything.
And you do that for 100, 200 years, it essentially becomes part of the people.
Well, yeah, what happens to the kids who who grow up resisting and try to buck that system?
Let's see. If they're good at it, they become politicians. If they're bad at it, they go homeless, and we look at them like they're diseases on society.
Right. They either try to usurp the system or wield it to their own ends, or they get excised entirely. Which means that with this system, as the elite class of today, you've you've socially engineered a general populace of pacifists.
Yep.
Also, don't forget all the things that are lowering our testosterone too. Don't forget that the food, microplastics, quite literally everything, quite literally everything in modern society is designed to do that in some way or form.
True, there's enough stuff going into the food and everything that just harms the human body.
It's what I find so funny about amendments debates. Something I used to take seriously up until last year. Uh, the the pro versus anti Second Amendment comes to mind. When you let's be honest, that's a moot point in all seriousness because the Second Amendment is about a people's rights to bear arm, the intention of which was against tyranny, foreign or domestic. So whether it's your own government or an enemy army.
Mm.
But the ruling elites are managed to entirely circumvent this dilemma entirely by pacifying the masses. So all such debates serve as is just yet another distraction. Which actually brings me to something that I wasn't going to discuss on the podcast today, but it is something I've noticed for a while. If the masses can't motivate themselves, why is propaganda necessary to be repeated? And I do have an answer. I promise this is a rhetorical question. I'm just wondering what your guys' thoughts on that before I give my answer.
I think
Well,
it's primarily to just it's to browbeat a message. Like the more you repeat something, uh and there's not enough people to push back against it. It's like, and again, it does go back to the fact that the masses are stupid, and then that's me being nice to the masses. um because the masses are stupid, they're gonna forget about the people who did try to push back. And usually, this actually starts out very very young, and it's not the young boys uh, who are the best at repeating the propaganda. It's young girls. So it really
I,
does go back to the schooling system.
I see what you're saying, but my question was why is repetition of that propaganda necessary? Remember, I stated this by acknowledging that the masses, they can't mobilize themselves. That's what counter elites are for, to lead uprising against elites. Why is the repetition necessary if masses don't mobilize?
repetition, if I have to give my opinion on this, is because of people like us. No matter the generation, no matter the era, there's always going to be the outliers. The ones who are going to look at it and go, something's not right. There's going to have to be that repeat of, I know things are this way, or eventually there's going to be enough of a gathering of those outside thinkers to go, maybe we should kick down this system.
Right. Yeah, that's why the repetition of the propaganda is necessary. It's in case of those, which there's always the which is this is always the case to some degree, that there will be a few amongst the propagandize who will either see through it outright or still find it in them to question it. And propaganda repetition serves as a means to either get them to question themselves, their own thought process, so that they can be more susceptible to the repeated propaganda, or to ostracize those that refuse to go along.
Yeah, because I imagine, like, if we went out in person and tried to say what we say real life and not on the internet, a lot of people would probably look at us like we've gone nuts.
All I can attest to that personally is I've tried having a few of these conversations with different friends and family members, and they did think I was nuts. Some of them told me outright.
Yeah, people think I'm not so but so too, but I've come to embrace it.
The answer I was getting to, though, as correct as Okairo is here, is propaganda repetition serves as a measure that the elites use to stop the rise of counter elites. Because it's counter elites that mobilize the masses against elites.
I mean, yeah, you got a point there.
Yep.
Also, Archaeosophy, uh, who, in case anyone hasn't seen the last King's Council podcast episode, has switched to more of a producer role and will remain uh, that way going forward. He writes to us in our group chat. I wonder if fathers with low testosterone cause their offspring to form in the womb with lower testosterone, and if that affects how the child turns out. Which I think you're onto something there too, Archaeosophy. I think that's a I think that's a sign of how our system filters between what it would consider desirable citizens and what what it would deem as undesirable, the desirables and undesirables. Because did you guys see that study about high testosterone men being more likely to stand up for what their beliefs?
I haven't.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see why that isn't true. And this isn't even something that I can say that I don't think can, in good faith, be said, oh, well, where is this study you're mentioning? Or, oh, where can I find it? Because it's something that should be obvious. If we compare what we know about the role of men and how men were throughout all of human history up until the past nearly a century, there is a stark difference between them and us, isn't there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Though, to bring this back to the point to what if Altist post here, I do think he is right about the idea. I don't remember which one of you, or if both of you said this already. Um, there are more traditional cultures that I think we can aspire to, but National Socialism does have that recency of bias, and it's very clear to people willing to look and sort through information online that for all their flaws, a lot of their methods worked to deal with the problems of the day, many of which we're seeing again.
Not to mention, it's the most documented thing in human history.
Well, I mean, special interest groups have a high interest in ensuring that's the case for reasons we
Yeah.
discussed not a moment ago.
Me mum was in the Holly.
quite literally. Allow me to go on a little just a little tangent here about
Sure,
that whole thing.
sure.
I said this before, like on my own stream, but it's like so Piers Morgan was like, well, no, the Jews don't use the Holocaust as a bargain weapon, Nick. And then 2 minutes later, he brings on a Jew who uses the Holocaust as a bargain weapon to try to bludgeon Nick into doing what he wants.
You know what? I think I'll add that to the itinerary in lieu of that last item that I was hoping Kiza would be here for. Um, let's wrap up talking about what Vault is for a second. Well, actually, just before we do that, something I do want to mention. So, XIV has, I don't know if he's updated this on his website yet, but he started something called the Arc Library on Twitter, which he has told me he plans to move off of X onto his own website. And he did some research about whether or not, Uncle A was actually a Christian. And what he found
Oh,
was, even though all, even though AH was raised a Catholic and he used Christian rhetoric to get votes, he did hold some sort of disdain towards it in his later years due to his perceived Jewish infiltration to its influence. Which is that not the argument that we've heard from a lot of European pagans as of late as to why they're not Christians?
yes.
No, I haven't heard what your pagans are saying.
So a lot of the pagans that, especially a lot of the coal posters I see on Twitter, it's like they say that kind of like what Hitler was saying like back in the day in regards to as to why he has some disdain towards Christianity of Jewish influence in there, and it's like I mean, he's not entirely wrong. Like a lot of, and if you ask me, I think a lot of like Protestantism, it was kind of destined to be that way. It's like, you. Okay, that's a whole other tangent for another day. But basically, it is similar. The rhetoric is similar, but the pagans are wrong in just discarding Christianity when the correct, especially the former Christians, the correct answer would actually be, and, and obviously you guys can probably tell where this is going, especially since you guys know me for long enough. It's like the the correct answer is to actually look into orthodoxy because orthodoxy is not does not have the Jewish influence that these people are complaining about.
I'd argue reading the Bible in general, it would be sufficient enough, and not just cherry picking verses here and there, which I'm admittedly guilty of to some degree in
We
a
all
few of
are.
my
Let's be real. We
arguments.
all are.
Sure, but ideally we should be taking what we read from the Bible in context with, well, what's throughout the text. And what you'll
Yes.
find, so here, this is also a bit of a side tangent, but it's a good example of this. So, a lot of people, even practicing Christians, think that the Bible is about Jews. When they refer to the Israelites or the Hebrews of
Oh
old,
my
they refer to
goodness.
them as Jews. Which, in my
It's
opinion,
about
is,
Christ. It's about
well, in
Christ.
my opinion, it's just plain ignorant because the word Jew, as far as I'm aware, is a Greek word in origin, or at least its origin is in Greek, which I'm not entirely sure how the Bible was originally translated from Hebrew into Greek. That's a whole nother conversation that I'm on a subject I'm interested to dive into. But the point is, if you actually read the text, not only does it talk about a whole bunch of people who aren't descendants of Abraham, it also specifies that what we would call the Jews of the day are specifically of the southern kingdom of Judah, which includes the tribe of the same name, the tribe of Benjamin, and arguably the tribe of Levi. And I've gone on a whole tangent about that in one of our past episodes as well, which I'm actually I actually plan on writing a pretty long post as sort of an amendment to that I hope to serve as a thread for further research into the idea. But that's But that's neither here or there. It's honestly, this doesn't it isn't excuse me. This isn't even just applicable to the Bible either. This is true with history at large, be it conventional or scripture.
Can I chime in?
Since yeah, absolutely.
Well, just to build off what you're saying, which everything you're saying is correct, everything should be within context of the Bible, but you also have to look at it as the time it was written. A lot of it is not going to make sense or be understandable nowadays. We could look at something and interpret it way differently than someone 2,000 years ago.
Right. And it is yeah, that is something to consider as well. That's actually pretty close to something I've heard from pro-constitutionalists lately about how the Constitution should be preserved in the context in which it was written, which sounds noble until you consider that, or at least until you entertain the idea that the founding fathers probably didn't write more than they thought they needed to. Just because, at any given time or place, you have traditions and concepts that are just normal to you, that are self explanatory, and most people don't even think need to be explored further at all in any depth, just because by virtue of it being obvious.
That, and not to mention, they couldn't think of everything. They wouldn't think of the internet or social media we have today.
See, I'd argue that's besides the point
I'm just
because
using it as an example.
I mean that you're right. They can't they couldn't have foreseen everything. But why I don't even think that's a part of it is because legislators and politicians have been able to find loopholes uh, within our founding documents nearly since its inception.
Or if they didn't find it, they made some.
Exactly. So, the most charitable argument I have towards any pro constitutionalist argument or any pro republic argument is your documents should be so airtight that a toddler can read and comprehend them with perfection. A literal toddler should be able to read the whole thing word for word and comprehend it in its fullness. Basically, I'm saying you need to talk down to everyone you're writing your laws to in order
I
to
mean,
make that work. And that's just assuming that the people you have in power uphold them anyway, which we know that given enough time, they eventually don't.
I agree. Things should be just straight to the point that a 5-year-old could read it and go, okay, I know what all this means. It would save a lot of headaches.
I specify that because it's really about making sure the law of the land is understood by the lowest common denominator, at least in terms of understanding, and that usually tends to be small children.
Yeah, not to mention if it gets more complicated, less people can read it, more loopholes get created, then it just becomes messy.
Yeah, this is actually an issue, and there's a. I know we were joking about what was his name, Daniel Finkelstein, about me mom died in the holly, me dad's a boss, so we were joking about that a moment ago, but that
Yeah.
actually does bring me to another issue with the Third Reich regime, which I know I've also covered on here before, but it's absolutely relevant to what evolved his post because one of the areas in which he's right is because, well, the Third Reich was modernist in a sense that it maintained a pseudo democracy through its, I'd call it a very aristocratic republic. And the measures in which they enforced their authority, I think that's what made it totalitarian, what, what we would call fascist, is because of just how militaristic it was. Which is great uh, for addressing with the issue short term, but long term, well, we all saw what happened to them.
Oh, I mean, when you're going from the Weimar Republic to something decent, yeah, you're gonna have to be heavy-handed at first, but I do agree. Over time, you want to lessen the stick.
Yeah, you want to lessen your grip. And the mistake that Adolf Hitler and the rest made, I'd
They
argue, is
they
they
didn't
didn't do
lessen.
that. Yep, they didn't lessen it. They kept that tight grip, which seeded resentment and even rebellion amongst his own people. Never mind all of his enemies around him. So, yeah, let's I mean, don't get me wrong, Hugo Boss is cool. I don't think anyone really disagrees with that. Maybe if you're big on fashion and have particular taste, sure. But there's a lot of aspects of the Third Reich regime that are becoming popular again that I think we can all agree should be left behind. There's
I could
things
say
about it.
that.
There's things about it that work. There's things about it that don't. Like for example, my biggest issue, and I know I've made a post about this as well, but I'm not gonna try to dig that up right now. My biggest issue was they made no attempt, as far as I'm aware, to restore the German monarchy.
No, if anything, they did their best to remove the German monarchy.
Yep. Funny that how they wanted a totalitarian authority for the sake of their nation, a return to tradition in many, many ways, and they seemed keen to not implement one of their most traditional elements, which has been a cause for the most stability. Funny that, isn't it?
Well, I know I've mentioned this before on one of the older councils. A part of it was because the prime minister, president, whatever they were calling the person in Weimar Republic, he was someone went to him and did say, "Let us bring back the monarchy. We see what Hitler is doing. Let's bring back the monarchy to stall what he is doing, maybe stop it." And the guy said, "I can't do that. I made an oath. I despise the Republic. I despise the Republic for what it is, but I made the oath. I cannot do it."
And yeah, that to me, I don't care how it sounds to anyone else, that's not noble. Oh, woohoo, you stood by your principles that got you dethroned, and whatever else happened to that guy. It allowed Hitler to gain to gain popularity. So Adolf
Yeah,
got to become, what was it, Chancellor and then Führer, I
yeah.
believe is how that went. But you stood by your principles.
I mean, good for you. I wonder what happened to him. I wonder. I do need to look that up.
Yeah, that's its own conversation as well. No, like I said near the beginning of this stream, we have a lot to talk about today. Which I guess we should move on to our next topic. Unless there's anything else you guys want to add to this. There's a lot that Altis is right about here. There's a lot that he's wrong about. I think that's the general consensus here. Uh, I think I had more to say on this matter, but I can't really think of it at the moment.
Well, if you remember it, we can always come back.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, I think that's it for now. I thought I had more to say on this, but Scurvy, anything you want to add to this topic? Anything else I should say? Hello?
Sorry, I was muted. I know I think I might have something. I'm just trying to remember what it is, and I assume you were talking about like the guy who was running Germany before the Führer.
Yeah, I just pulled him up. He was killed in the Night of Long Knives.
Ah, gotcha.
So his
I
principles got
see.
him killed.
Yep. I that is funny.
Well,
But
here's why I'm laughing, right? Because I don't see an issue with dying for your principles necessarily. That's not what I think. That's not what I'm laughing at. That's not what I think is funny. What's funny is principles not only got him killed, but it got him killed so that his enemies. I assume he viewed the Nat Sox as his enemies. They were able to gain power as a result. So woohoo! You died for your cause, but it lost. Yeah, real noble of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for looking that up. Now we.
Sadly, his wife was also killed.
Yeah, that's always sad when wives and children are brought into that as well. I mean, let's face it, more often than not, they have nothing to do with it. So yeah, it's sad. But all of them were clinging to their structures as is. You know, their republic, their democracy, and yet so much of that bloodshed could have just been avoided if they turned to their past, to the traditions, and thought, what if we brought our monarchy back?
Yeah, they could have just went, we have something that we had before. We have nothing else to work with. Why not give it a shot?
Oh yeah, I remembered what I was gonna say.
I'll let
As
you speak
much,
first try.
all right, sure, thank you. So, what if Altist post here comes off as it kind of comes off as a monarchy bill to me. I don't know if he meant it as that because he talks about um, how absurd he seems to think that it is that Nazism is gaining popularity. But then he references old orders and tribes and clans and groups where their structures were more, I, as far as I'm aware, explicitly hierarchical. It's just something that I find more and more amusing the more this gets talked about. But anyhow, Scurvy, what would you like to add?
So I remember, like, every now and then when I do talk about the subject of fascism, and not and Nazism, basically I do remember hearing something. It's like, oh wait, no, I brought this up before to my Kamiyoshi Undead Chronic, actually. Like like, in my opinion, the best forms of fascism will always bring about monarchy, for the sole fact that like a fascist government is not designed to last very long. It's an interim period to help get order back into the civilization. That's the purpose of fascism. And then when it goes past, like you could say, the 4 year mark, things start getting to be a little bit out of control, you could say. And then we get some of the failures of fascism, for sure.
Right, that kind of runs into the same problem. uh, Excuse me, but doesn't that run into the same problem re- of representative governments? Representative in quotes, where it's contingent upon things working as they should, and the people
Yes.
within operating as they ought to be. And I,
Yes.
and I know
And when somebody else takes over, they're gonna fuck that up.
which I of course can. Some will argue the same for monarchy, while also either being ignorant of or ignoring all the incentives that come with that, so that it's not as likely. Uh, I actually had a. I've actually been thinking of this analogy for a while. It's not a fully formed thought because I'm terrible with words, if that wasn't apparent. So finding an exact way to describe this hasn't been easy. But my thinking goes as follows. When you have the throne of power closed off, you have prosperity and gosh darn it, stability and prosperity. But when it's open, you have uh, you have suffering and you have destruction. Again, I know I slurred the heck out of that, just butchered what I was trying to say, but for example, I used the word throne. Would a better word be gate? I do, but I am getting across the concept nonetheless, aren't I?
Yeah, I get what you're trying to
I've
say.
been trying
Yeah.
really, really hard to simplify a lot of what I believe more in the event that, well, I'm, I actually became an uncle early this year, and I'm on, and it looks like my family's on track to uh, me having more and more nieces and nephews. And I also hope to be a father someday. I don't know how likely that'll be, but it is something that I would like to strive to. Hopefully before I get too old for it to be viable. But in any case, I am going to come to a point in my life where I will be asked by the younger upcoming members of the family what I think about things that are going on in the world. The more and more things get out of hand. And if I'm going to be honest, I'll need to put things into ways that they can understand. And that's really the precipice of truly understanding it, explaining it in a way to where it can be understood by that, so that it could be understood by a child, where it is so simple that you don't need sources or extensive research papers to explain what you mean.
I got you.
Right. So, do we want to go through itinerary as is, or do we want to talk about the um what's that what's that bugger's name? Piers Morgan, Nick Fuentes debate? Well, I say debate, but I mean it's he calls it an interview, but is it it's really an interrogation. Do we want to I know that's been talked to death already by other people and podcasters, but do we want to kind of go over it briefly? Because
Yeah, I don't mind.
it is a little bit related to what we've been talking about so far.
If you
Because
want to.
yeah, no, we'll make this quick. So Nick's refusal to take back any of the things he said and all the clips that Piers pulled up, all the videos that made him viral. There's an upside and a downside to this. The upside being that men of our generation, and by our generation, I speak to guys my age and anywhere between a decade older and younger than myself. We're giving less and less of a crap about what the old order uh, about its shaming tactics, about being called ist or phobes. The downside is people are also racing towards what's becoming popular again, that, as we've discussed, though has some good ideas, is not a recipe for long term success. Just thought I'd bring that up because it's something I thought was indicative of what we were talking about.
In terms of that whole interview, right? I was just like I was laughing my ass off for the majority of it because it was just like, oh my goodness, Piers, you jackass. Do you willfully not do any research about the people you bring on, or are you just doing this to try to get? I have a feeling he was doing this to try to get ratings because he made a post uh a few days back of just saying well, wow, this was a very tremendous month. Look at where I'm at on the top podcast of the month. That sounded more Australian than British, but whatever. And I was just like, oh, I mean, you have somebody to thank for that. In my mind, it's like you got somebody to thank for that.
Uh, You brought up Pierce saying, "Oh, Jews don't weaponize the Holocaust for their own ends," and then of course him bringing on that Jewish friend of his. I think that was the
Me,
worst
me mom
thing.
died
Because,
in the Holly. He was born in the
yeah,
60s. He was born in the fucking 60s. In case you didn't know that, Danny Finkelstein was
yeah,
born in the 60s.
bringing him on was I think the biggest mistake Pierce made in that entire interview, quote unquote. More so than even name dropping Nick Francis's dad, which I'm not gonna do because I'm not the same kind of scumbag that Piers Morgan is.
Yeah, that's when that was a moment of this means war. You made this fair fucking game. You made it fair for, the Groypers to go after your family. Now, I'm not condoning that, what happened. I mean, the Groypers didn't go after his kids or anything, which good on them. Um
Might have you can't really put that kind of thing past some of them.
True. They might have done that, but I mean, hey, when it comes to all the stuff we know about your wife now, I'd say fair is fair. Fair is fair.
And as you mentioned, the guy was born in the '60s, so clearly his parents survived.
No, no, it's a miracle.
Oh no, of course, of course, of course. It was yeah, yeah, no, it was it was, don't you see, we're God's chosen, so of course God would grant us this kind of miracle. Or
What
I
do
don't
you
know.
mean by miracle? What do you mean by miracle?
Yeah,
Weird
he's your
time
God.
travel.
Yeah, we're time. You know what? Why not? That's what they're going to start saying next. 'Cause, I mean, we've seen the headlines and the articles go around about increasing numbers of Holocaust survivals. I will eat my words if they don't go to time travel unironically at some point to suggest that it exists to some degree. They're not going to say it outright because that's not how they operate
Oh,
usually.
I'm waiting for one of them who's like very young to say I was in the Holocaust.
And don't get me started on just how more like as time goes on, it's like the more we listen to like the stories of survivors, it's just like, really, did you how the fuck are we supposed to believe that you had a giant plank of wood shoved up your ass? And not to mention, there were orchestra, there was an actual orchestra at Auschwitz. That is actually true. That is actually true. There was an orchestra at a death camp. How? I don't know. You're just supposed to accept it and not question it.
Yeah, all I'll say about the Holocaust is this: is I and maybe I've also mentioned this on here before. I don't know. I grew up being more or less pretty educated in the approved narrative, more or less, and I've just accepted that there's a lot about it I don't know. So a lot of it I said could have happened. A lot of it could be bunk. I don't believe it is exactly as I've been taught, as I've been told. But whatever the case, it has been used almost exclusively as a bludgeon against the Western world. And so for
Exactly.
that reason, it doesn't matter to me anymore. Any
Ultimate
good,
bargain weapon.
yeah, no, any goodwill that the Jews would have had, they've burned that with that tragedy. With tragedy, if it had happened as they had said, if they are entirely honest and the approved narrative is indeed um, all that went down, any goodwill they would have had by falling back on that, they've squandered all of it, as far as I'm concerned.
Yep.
That's done. It's gone.
So
We're sick of
so
it.
guys, I want to, since we're on this topic, and it's something I brought up before, not on here but on my own streams. But if you know how people talk about like the Holodomor and then compare it to the cost, basically, you're allowed to question the Holodomor, like Christian, Christians don't have a problem with you questioning what happened in the Holodomor. Compare that to the Holocaust, and it's like, okay, you could get it. You could literally get into prison, have your life destroyed. As in the case of many American commentators who questioned it, it's like you could have your life destroyed, even though we have the First Amendment in this country, goes to show that it's dog shit. Um,
Yeah.
but you're but you can get arrested for it in Europe and some other countries outside of it,
I
or
mean,
yeah, you could have your life destroyed. In
was
America, it's like
wasn't there
it.
like an 80-year-old or 90-year-old woman who went to prison because she said she didn't believe it?
Yes, yes, in Germany, I believe. Um, in regards to that, it's just like, you are imprisoning 90-year-old grandmas. So how are we supposed to know it's true? Actually, what happens is that more people are just gonna be like, it's like, why the fuck should we believe you? How are you not lying to us?
Yeah,
I
when you
realize we've gotten way, way off topic now. Oh, go ahead, Okaro.
Yes.
I was gonna say it's like when you start doing that, you just start arbitrarily arresting people for like the littlest things when you can just go, yeah, no, it didn't happen that way. You start creating the kind of mindset that tells other people you're hiding something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is one reason why I think the whole Jews have the highest IQ thing is bunk. Yeah, I really need to enunciate my words more. That's why I think that's nonsense. I realize humans um, we aren't creatures of just thought. We're creatures of feelings, and we don't always act based on reason. But at the same time, they managed to have as much of a cultural and political foothold as they had through, as they, excuse me, as they have, ah, through what amounts to obscuring details and shaming. Which, um, as I'm sure we've noticed with India, for example, that does not require deception at large is not a marker of high intelligence. I don't know about you guys, but I remember being able to lie to my parents when I was 6 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
But yeah, the Nat Sox, they had a lot of good ideas, a lot of bad ideas. Some of, there's some policies that could work, but its overall structure clearly didn't. So let's
I
leave.
think it's. Oh, sorry. I'll
No,
let
go
you
ahead.
finish.
No, go ahead. I'm making a closing statement to this topic. So if you have anything else you want to add,
I was just
no.
gonna say, I think we should actually leave. Can we please leave this era behind us? Can we actually think about? I understand looking at the past to gain wisdom, but can we please actually use that wisdom in a way to make us as a civilization truly move forward? Can we stop being stuck in the 1900s? Can we actually have like some, you know, can we actually start a new point in history? Can the end of history just end? Can we resume history,
Ironically
please?
enough, Scurvy, that's going to require us to look even further into history from the 1800s and before.
Yeah, I am aware. I'm just saying, but we could use that knowledge in a way that we're not just repeating it, you know?
Oh, for sure. It's sorting from good traditions and bad traditions is what this amounts to. And um, okay, do you still have that aspirin with you?
Yes. What's our next painful subject?
So I've got the post up here that I'll again read. Actually, you know what? I'll read both of them. This is in response to a post by Dave Smith. And I'm just going to read that first line of it. Despise my assumption that Trump's second term would be a disaster. Even when supporting him, I'm blown away how bad it's been. I don't think any of us here have an issue with that statement alone.
Not really.
Yeah, I didn't think so. Razor Fist has to come in here and say, however, you said yesterday he was declaring war on Venezuela by that evening. This morning, instead of admitting your mouth is a bullshit ballista and thus you were wrong as per usual, you simply deleted the tweet. Tens of thousands of likes and retweets later, of course. Which all of this could be true. As far as I know, I don't follow Dave Smith or Razor Fist anymore.
Well, Razorfist
But,
has me blocked, so.
Yeah.
oh,
Razor
awesome.
bitch also has me blocked.
Yeah, I noticed that's been a bit of achievement in our monarchist spheres. One
Yeah.
that I have yet to unlock. I will try though. That is a goal of mine.
Oh, it's very easy. Just reply to any post of his and say you're a monarchist.
I guess I need to do that more often then. In any
So it would
case,
seem.
someone responds to him saying, "Are you against going to war with Venezuela? Do you find it concerning that Trump is referring to the oil in Venezuelan ground as ours?" Which I think we can all agree is a little concerning. Which I'll say this real quick before I continue. I don't actually have a problem with the concept of conquest outright. What my concern is the reasoning and the means. So let's observe what that means in this context. America is suffering right now. The entire world is, mainly the West, but America specifically. We've been having an identity crisis for a while, which is being bolstered by Trump's other ineptitude. So, given all of that, um, it begs the question why we'd be trying to go to war with another country, wouldn't it? And not even one that we have a lot of extensive history going to war with. Not even that region, even in just the past century. It's usually been the Middle East, the Muslims. But no, this time it's Latin America for more oil, which I mean, I like low gas prices as much as the next average American, but I mean, I don't know. Maybe I should just keep reading this, or rather, I should read Razor Fist response here, and this is the post that made me want to talk about it. And he says, "I support war against any communist or socialist nation on earth for any reason ever. Communist and socialist deny the very concept of national sovereignty and thus are not entitled to any of their own." To which I say, okay, Warhawk. Jeez. Unholy hell. So, oh, if anyone wants to spurg out, now is definitely the time.
Oh, where do I begin? I mean, for the most part, yes, his posts are okay, the non-Razor Fist guy. But at the same time, it's not looking at the bigger picture, and Razor Fist is just a tard in a jar. The reason that I don't think the US is going to war with Venezuela, we can't, it would shatter the US financially, is mainly because since Venezuela has oil and it's nationalized the oil, the US doesn't like it because it starts encroaching on the petrodollar. And when it does that, it starts devaluing the dollar more, and the US can't have that. So it's less about ideology or whatever Venezuela's doing, it's more about them touching the oil.
Which is on their land.
Yep.
See, that's what bothers me, right? Is this Warhawk insistence that we have to go to war with these countries for their oil. I'm not necessarily the biggest proponent of negotiation either. There's a time and place for every kind of action, after all, within reason. But surely Venezuela is a nation we can negotiate about this, isn't it? Or am I missing something here?
You're missing the bigger picture. The US dollar is about 4,000% devalued. We went from $35 USD for an ounce of gold to, I'm not sure what the market price is today, but usually $2,000 or $4,000. That's a giant jump since we went off the gold standard. Right now, the only thing giving it any kind of backing is oil. So when anything pokes into the oil market and the US does not control it, it threatens that because US loses control of the oil, the US dollar is going to end up being worth as Zimbabwe bucks or Weimar Germany dollars.
Okay, here's a hot take of mine then. Is that a bad thing?
It depends on which side of the aisle you are. If you're like me and you just want to see the economy crash as soon as possible so it can reset, no, it's a good thing. If
Okay, we're
you're
in agreement.
Yeah, if you're on the other side and you don't want it to crash because you have money in tons of different things, no, you want this war because you want control of it.
Yeah. No, I've been a proponent of national divorce in balkanized America for um, nearly half a year now, and part of that is absolutely wanting our constitutional republic, quote unquote, to collapse. It doesn't have to be outright. uh, I don't think it's going to be all at once, nor do I think that's necessarily good that it is. But we already see it falling apart around us. I would just like to see that continue while we try to build out little communes for ourselves.
I mean, it's going to continue because no matter Trump's supposed successes, let's say the inflation rate is down. Yes, it's down, but it's not negative. He's not, reversing the inflation. The the dollar's still going to devalue just a lot slower.
Yeah, it's
Does
almost
it,
as
it does it feel like like this I have a feeling like this term of Trump is just going to be him. It just feels like the delay of the inevitable.
Yes, it's basically what it is. The tariffs, everything is just delaying everything as long as possible because that's what the boomers and all the elites currently want. And the second, let's say, the US dollars become worthless, you will see every company, every elite abandon the US for China, Russia, some other country.
Mhm.
suck us dry and buzz off like the parasitic leeches they are. Oh,
Yep.
wonder who I
Basically.
was wonder who I'm talking about. But yeah, back to Rage First Retardation. Now, look, I used to be a fan of his, and that's because one of the things I appreciated when I came across his channel was his recommendation to what I view as pretty obscure fictional works.
You
But
poor soul.
yeah. But here's the thing. He there's a there's a couple of reasons why I ended up not following him anymore. One of it is he made a comment saying something to the effect of we don't need the likes of the Odyssey or the Iliad anymore because we have the Western. And as a big storytelling enthusiast myself, I'm sure you can imagine how that got on my nerves. So
Oh,
there's
yes.
that. And then around the same time he made that comment, look, I don't mind hearing viewpoints or seeing posts from people I disagree with, but I draw the line at unironically reposting the fat gay retard James Lindsay.
Did somebody say my name? Hi, I'm James Lindsay. I'm taking over Scurvy Station for a second. You guys are the epitome of the woke right, and the woke right is just like, they're the worst. They actually want the country to be a country again, and not just some economic zone. Um, oh well, And my counter argument to this is I'm just gonna call you a bunch of names that don't actually mean anything, because I love Jews very much. I was promised a shipment of foreskins 3,000 years ago, and by gosh, I'm gonna get it.
It do be like that, Mr. Stancil.
Uh,
So there's an AI song that I think um I mean it was posted by iHypocrite, at least on my screen. I don't know if he used AI to make it or not, but it's it's a neat little rock bop called "The Most Convoluted Way to Call Someone a Nazi Ever." And it's basically just one of James Hendry's post, but like sung as a like performed as a punk
oh,
rock. You might know what I'm talking about, Scurvy, don't you? I'll share
I
it in the
think,
group chat.
but bro, I love stuff like that. I love stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I'll
Because
go back and find it and share it with you guys. It's something that I unironically listen to every once in a while because
it's
it's
like
just
the same when Andrew Wilson made like posts of into like of like his like female detractors and it's just like in the style like of like metal songs I found those really funny.
or Karen metal. I mean, that's not AI made, but if you know what that is,
And Karen metal.
okay,
I
you
don't
don't
know what
know
that
about
is.
Karen metal. All right, well, that's something for you to look into.
Is it like I need this other
Okay, so it's someone playing guitar riffs to clips of Karen spurring out.
one?
Of which not all the cases are real. Like, there's one example of a teacher in a classroom who, after finding the context, it was her giving, yeah, it was just her giving an example, but, stuff gets taken out of context all the time on the internet. Very midwit of me to acknowledge, I know. Let me just put on my I need context hat. It is true to an extent. But, I don't have anything else to add to this. This is just, neocon warhawk slop. This is just Zionist warbrain gobbledygook. That's all this is. Like,
It's stupidity in a nutshell.
yeah. I mean, I don't like the communist either, and I'm not a big fan of the socialist, barring one type that I have some agreement with. But no, that's not a reason to just go to war with another nation while ours is collapsing. That's stupid. If you want to go on a crusade, there's reasons for crusading. Um, going to war with people whose government works differently than yours, while
It's not one of
yours
them.
is yeah, while your home is collapsing, is not one of them. And then yeah, that's all I have to add. Yeah, I don't have anything else to add to that. That's just honestly, what more can be said about it? I'm gonna take your guys' silence as a there's nothing more to be said.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, and then I think that was all for the itinerary. Oh, Cairo, how about giving us some input about some of the things that we've covered previously that you weren't present for? We'll start with, well, the last King's Council that Scurvy and I did. I believe you wanted to give us more historic examples about kings and their councils.
Uh, Not just the kings and the councils, but there's some other things in there too.
Oh, well,
But
sure.
I guess we
Yeah,
could start. We can
yeah,
start with the kings and councils.
yeah. Well, stage is yours.
So, with what you guys were talking about with the kings and councils, like what is the reason for them? It's a lot like all of you were talking about. The council is basically the group that Well, the king is one guy. He can't be 50 places at once. So he needs to have someone who's in charge of trade, someone who's in charge of diplomacy, foreign affairs, someone who's in charge of infrastructure, public works, so on and so forth. He can't do all that himself, or nothing will get done, or very little will get done. So the council is there for him to say, okay, go do this, go do that. And it's also there for them to inform him, hey, my lord, so this, this happened or this needs to be done. You know, this village had a famine. There's something wrong with this town's well, so on and so forth. At the same time, when he has to make a decision that's going to affect the entire nation, he's going to bring them here and say, here's what I'm planning to do. Give me your thoughts. That's the main reason why a king has a council. He can't run a country alone.
I believe Archaeosophy himself said that a king and his elites, they need each other. And as I myself have mentioned, there's a very natural balance of powers with that dynamic.
Yeah, it should be cooperative, not parasitic.
Yes, it should be reciprocal, is the better term I'd use. The king's in charge. He makes sure everything's prosperous, everything's running correctly. He gives, like, again, the delegation, the power to his nobility. And in turn, the nobility gets power, gets money, gets land, gets a lineage to carry on, while the kingdom has people who also work to better it by order of the king. It's when it starts turning parasitic that, well, shit hits the fan, so to speak.
And yeah, I don't really have anything else to add to that I didn't already talk about last time.
Oh yeah. I do remember something that I wanted to add to that. You know that I am a king myself. I am king of Tropicana County, and I do have a council that I cooperate with.
First time I've heard of it, I thought you were a dictator.
No, no, no. I'm not a dictator. I'm not a dictator.
You could
As
be.
it turns out, the council, the council likes a lot of what I suggest for the kingdom. So,
Oh, well, that's good to hear.
I'm guessing if they don't, you eat them.
well, no, no, no. It wouldn't be. They would be eaten. They'd probably just get some pushback from some of the other members of the council.
All right. Anything else you want to add about King's Councils, Okairo?
No, that's kind of mainly the only part I wanted to add in, which
All
is
right.
basically just what all of you were saying, just condensed down.
Well, thank you for condensing all that for us. It's very helpful. And then the other things we talked about, one of them being nationalism, civic, or ethnic. Do you have anything to add to that?
Uh, oh, I guess to help clarify what you mean between national and ethnic
Civic.
or
I
civic.
try. I I know it may not seem that way with how rambly I am, but I do try to be precise in my words.
Well, it's been about 4 or 5 hours, so we've been busy with all this, so yeah, it's probably my fault for mixing up words.
That's all right.
Uh, but so I guess I guess to get a refresher on your opinion, how do you see it?
I think the idea of civic nationalism and ethnic nationalism are both redundant because a nation is its people.
Pretty much. That makes sense. They're both redundant in a way that
I mean, one of them is more correct than the other, but the distinction itself, I think, is a false paradigm.
yeah,
That's interesting.
yeah, I kind of agree. But if you look at this in terms of how they used to do things, oh, way back when, we can use like the ancient Chinese Empire for an example, since they, at least in terms of like the Asian population, were kind of a melting pot. If you're like, yeah, Chinese who implemented, let's say, the Mongolians or the Uyghurs or other nations nearby at the time, while they didn't automatically become Chinese, they didn't exactly have the same obligations as the Chinese either. You couldn't call it civic or ethnic anything. A lot of it was kind of just based on, are you part of the original country or not? And your duties kind of stemmed from there. If you were Han Chinese, you kind of just did what your empire said. If you were brought in as a Uyghur, for example, that didn't really, you really didn't have any expectations put on you. Yes, you could join the army or whatever and aid the original country, but you didn't have any expectations from it.
Huh. So it's a matter of obligation.
Yes, it would be like if I invaded Scurvy's kingdom and conquered him.
Good luck
My-
with that.
I'm using it as an example, you ugly orange.
Ah, hey,
But let's say that happened. It's like his little country. Well, I would not have any expectations on his people because they're newly conquered. They're likely not going to like me. So why would I have any expectations on them?
Basically, what you're describing is imperialism.
To an extent, yes.
Okay, to what extent is it not?
Assimilation, essentially. Let's say let's say, I've conquered, Tropicana country that he owns. Let's say
county,
country,
county. It is
whatever.
a county.
It's a speck of land.
Yes,
But let's
yes.
but let's say it's like it's been 100 years since they were conquered. The obligation and everything would depend on, did they assimilate into the empire, or are they just their distinct own culture in the empire? If they're gonna basically be stubborn and say we're gonna keep following our own thing, again, there's no obligation that I'm expecting of them because I expect them to be stubborn and be little assholes about it.
Okay, that's interesting to think about. Though I guess I don't know, maybe I'm not entirely paying attention, but I'm not exactly sure what that has to do with the difference between civic and ethnic nationalism. Are you saying what you're describing as an example of what you would call a civic nation versus an ethnic one, where you have different ethnic groups who are civil in the sense that they share a speck of land or territory?
To be fair, it's probably me mixing things up, but yeah, you could look at it that way.
Huh.
But you,
And maybe I didn't sum up with my position as well, but I find it interesting that you thought that surprising, Scurvy, since, well, we talked about this last time.
It's been a minute.
Yeah, I suppose it has. Yeah, no, that was that's an interesting to hear, and I also appreciate the insight in Chinese history.
it gets very detailed. Sadly, not a lot of it's known in the West because East bad.
Yeah, and then I'm I believe you also had some frustrations about what academic agent said that I covered last time. As a matter of fact, you actually being literate, as opposed to myself, can probably name a good few examples of where that's been more than viable, and AA was just being a retard.
AA's been a retard for like the last 5, 6 months, if not longer. I'm not sure what started it, but some of the things he says, it's like, okay, that makes sense. Other things, it's like, did you just get hacked? It's like what you were talking about in the last one when it was him saying, no country is just going to remove, what was it, 30 something percent of under 18?
Yeah, yeah, that was the demographic he was talking about. And he made a point to space out the sentence in his post that even if you addressing white ethno nationalists, even if you were in charge, he made that a point. To which I believe I said, oh, or I don't remember if I said this or not, or if I said anything similar. But I believe I was willing to give the benefit of a doubt of there being logistic issues to it. But even then, that's still the most charitable I think I can be to that position.
Yeah, you brought up the logistics problem, which I agree. If it's just purely just logistical, yeah, that would be the main issue. But the logistics would be a lot, would be large. But at the same time, I'd look at that from what he said, and it's like, even you wouldn't do that. I'd look at him and say, watch me. Everyone get in a line and start walking.
Well, we have one pretty notorious example of this that the media hasn't shut up about in the past however many decades now. And it was the fact that the Jews were expelled from Germany before they started getting rounded up in concentration camps. So, bullshit, people can't be deported.
Yeah. I mean, you either get deported or you get the worst
Deportations
option.
are wrong. Deportations are wrong. You can't just take people who are leeching off the welfare system and tell them to fuck off back to their home country. You just can't do that.
Well, okay, I can always choose the worst option. No deportations. Final problem solving.
That's actually
You
something
can't do that. That's inhumane.
Oh, that's actually something because we brought him up last time as well. That's actually something Zoomer historian has mentioned that one of the reasons I'm paraphrasing him. I don't think he said this word for word, but this is what I'm getting from what he has said. The reason he pushes for remigration as hard as he does is because in his mind that is the most humane option. And I agree. It's
Yeah, it
actually
is.
stupid how charitable we're being by just advocating for people to be remigrated for just deportation. When in all seriousness, for the crimes a lot of these invaders, to correct my speech from last time, the appropriate punishment. Well, I mean, gosh, what else can be said about this other than in any other point in history, all of this would be viewed as acts of war, and
Yeah,
we're not treating it as such.
I mean, we have, it's even the US's own history. Look at what we did to the Native Americans. They've done, in their history, a lot of horrible things to the people at the various times. We didn't exactly deport them. We kind of said, get in a camp and sit there.
Yeah. Though on the subject of deportations, I'd actually like to bring an example up from my own religion's history. So, this is actually something funny because it's one of the instances where we Latter-day Saints, i.e. Mormons, have in common with the Jews is we also have a history of being expelled from places. Now, granted, it's not in the double, let alone triple digits, the amount of times, but we do have a little bit of that shared history. Here's the difference. When the early saints were persecuted, um, what ended up finally happening after Joseph Smith was martyred is all the saints pack up and they left. They left the United States, or what were the borders of America at the time, into Mexico territory and sell the Salt Lake Valley. Yeah, it turns out if you're not wanted somewhere, you can just go somewhere else. But too many people don't seem to grasp that concept, or rather they refuse to actually.
Well, yeah, a lot of it is they refuse to, because let's say, oh, we don't like you here, leave. W- It's like, I think a lot of black people will say it, like, why don't we return to Africa? Then every other black person goes, no. Well, you hate it here, don't you? Yes. You hate the white people? Yes. Let's go back to Africa. Everyone's black there. No, we don't want to. Why? Because if they go back there, well, they have broken infrastructure. They live in mud huts. All the benefits they have from living in a white society, basically, are gone.
Yeah, I suppose we can't leave out the racial component either. Nearly all of the early Latter day Saints, the early Mormons, were white.
Yeah.
So, make of that what you will. And I think that's everything. I don't remember if we had something else planned. I did mention one other topic, but we're going to save that for when Kiza is able to make an appearance. Because I definitely like to hear his take on that.
Well, we can always just redo it when we can grab him.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'll carry this topic over to next time's itinerary, which, on that note, announcement: the King's Council podcast going forward has a set day for it. It is
Finally.
Sundays from here. Yes, finally, from here on out, it is on Sunday. No specific time I can give for each Sunday since we'd have to uh, schedule it at certain times to accommodate for a different guest from where they live all around the world. But the day is set, so hallelujah. And then,
Hallelujah.
yeah, any announcements you guys want to make before we um, sign off today?
No.
Oh, I have one. Um, this is something for my channel, but this Friday at 7:30 p.m. EST, I am going to be hosting the first annual Scurvies Awards. These are going to be this is going to be an award show where it's all about scurvy and just all the things I find interesting or horrific or things like that. Do look forward to it. It's going to be some great, really spectacular, no budget fun. Um, I got all the award categories set. I did some further refinements to the presentation, and it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be free, and it's also gonna be sponsored by the Dragon's Treasure. So
It
yeah.
sounds it sounds like you're giving out a disease.
No, I'm not.
I
Well,
mean,
it's
it
what
is called.
It's about what I find to be highlights of the year.
I,
That's what the scurvies are.
Okara and I sharing a brain cell. Yeah, I mean, you do call it the scurvies.
yeah.
Yes, because my name is Scurvy.
Aren't you redebuting next year?
uh, yes, and there are going to be some surprises too. Don't spoil them.
We
I don't
can't
even know
spoil
them.
But yes, there are going to be plenty of fun surprises too. One at the beginning, one at the end. So do please do look forward to that.
Alrighty, Okara, anything else you want to announce?
not in particularly. Not unless anyone who listens to this is in Kentucky and needs security.
Cool, cool. And I actually do have one last announcement before we close for today. Um, I've set up a King's Council podcast community on X Twitter. If that sounds like something of interest of you, please be sure to apply to join in. And you could be you don't even have to be a monarchist per se. You could be You could be a member of the audience who just likes what we do and what we talk about on here. You could be someone who wants to be a guest or someone who has made an appearance before. I have it there to promote this podcast, to promote monarchy, and to also kind of double back on things previously discussed on the show, to maybe elaborate on things, especially in my case, where perhaps one of us, especially me, may not have been as clear as we wanted to in something that we said on the show. So that's what's there. That's the purpose of it, at least. I do have a bit of a questionnaire for application, but um, I don't expect any essays for your answers. Just yeah, go ahead and find that if you're interested. Apply for it, and I'll and if I think you, um, truth be told, I don't really have a criteria for the kind of people I accept as members of said community. I guess really, as long as you're generally pro monarchy or just want to promote the podcast, you're basically in. And yeah, that's all I have. So, well, um,
That's all, folks.
yes, thank you. That's all, folks.
Yes, that was pretty good. What would you guys say?
It was good.
I don't know if it's over yet. We're still alive.
Maybe Arch took a nap.
Maybe. Oh
Oh yeah, we
yeah.
just got a message. Just got a
Yes, we
message from
did.
the
Say your
producer.
goodbyes. We did.
They've
At least
already said.
I thought we did.